So you're learning about all the different options of airplanes out there and getting excited to maybe get a new one. Well, stay tuned. In this episode, we're going to talk about some things that aren't normally discussed or thought about prior to buying your own airplane. Hi guys, and welcome to my channel where we talk about all things aviation. If you don't know me, my name's Dave and I've been a pilot for nearly 30 years. I was a former naval aviator for 20 years and now I fly a big, heavy, multi-engine airplane all over the world. Welcome back everyone. So if you saw parts 1 and 2 of the video I made about buying a new airplane, you probably remember I had a little checklist over here that flashed up on occasion about different topics I want to talk about. In this list, it is by no means exhaustive, especially the safety section and the trade-off sections. All I did is very quickly allude to those items as part of your search, and that's something you need to at least think about or address as you're buying a new airplane. So before we continue on and address the final list on or item on that list, which was certified versus experimental, I want to introduce a new list and just talk briefly about all the other things that new owners probably haven't considered yet. So the first one on the list is financing. Are you going to buy the airplane outright with cash, or are you looking for financing options? Most of the aircraft financiers out there require usually about a 20% down payment, sometimes as low as 10, sometimes as high as 30. And their interest rates aren't comparable to buying a used or a new car out there. You're going to be paying a little bit higher in the interest rates for these airplanes. So you may have to shop around a little bit to find the best deal out there. Maybe your bank or institution or financial institution offers aircraft loans and you can shop with them first, or just ask around, do a Google search on the internet. Next up is insurance. The types of insurance you can buy on an airplane are similar to a car, but also different. First and foremost is liability. That means if anything happens while you're flying the airplane, at least you're partially covered for any type of liability out there. And then there's two types of actual insurance for your airplane itself. It's either in motion or on the ground, not in motion, to boil it down in layman's terms. So if you're out flying and for some reason on landing the left gear collapses or something like that, you walk away from it and the insurance company pays to have the airplane repaired, or heaven forbid they total it and then reimburse you for the loss of the entire aircraft. Ground not in motion is something slightly different. That means it's in the hangar and somebody runs something into it, like a forklift or another airplane as they're trying to pull an airplane out, and it causes damage to your airplane. Your insurance company will cover that. But if you typically, and you'll have to check your policy, if the propeller's moving at all and you're considered in motion, anything that happens after that is covered under a slightly different portion of the policy. Also, if you do finance, you are more than likely going to be required to carry all three of those types of insurance. Whereas if you just buy the airplane outright, you can kind of pick and choose what you want that best suits your needs in order to reduce costs. The insurance industry has started charging a lot more to insure general aviation aircraft over the last two and a half years. Basically, since right before the pandemic started, the prices started to rise pretty rapidly. And you're really going to just have to shop around. There are some airplanes out there, especially on the experimental market, where insurance costs are just astronomical, depending on which policies you're looking for out there. Next, I'll briefly hit on maintenance. And maintenance costs are a continuing thing that you're going to have to deal with for the life of owning your airplane. All these airplanes require an annual inspection if it's certified, or a condition inspection every year if it's an experimental airplane. So the costs of having to do one of those are different. If you have a 2-engine airplane, it's probably going to be almost twice as much, because the inspection is going to have to cover 2 engines and 2 propellers as well. So very much do your research when it comes to looking at different maintenance costs. And I alluded in the previous video about VREF, the service offered through AOPA.org. It gives you a great idea of roughly what an annual maintenance cost is, as well as if the engine's coming up on overhaul time, etc. And then there are also cats and dogs that happen all the time. Something just stops working. And depending on what type of aircraft you own, whether it's certified or experimental, you're either paying somebody to do the work, or if you know how to do it yourself and you own an experimental airplane, you can do it yourself. The rules in the FARs are pretty strict if you own a certified airplane of what maintenance you can and cannot do on that airplane. Like putting air in the tires or changing the oil in the engine. Some things that seem very basic that if you're just a garage mechanic who works on your own cars in your garage, it translates somewhat over to airplane ownership. But if you own a certified airplane, you're not allowed to do a lot of these things. It has to be a certified A&P, somebody who's certified to work on the airplane. Whereas an experimental, it's wide open, but the downside on the experimental is there are a lot of mechanics whose insurance won't allow them to work on experimental airplanes. So that's a little bit of a balance as well. Next thing I'll hit on is hangar space. If you actually plan on hangaring your airplane, probably should at least get a feel for what your local market has for hangar availability and pricing as well. And these can vary widely. Like the market I'm located in has about 7 airports in and around the city, but there's no hangar space available whatsoever. So normally people who get a new airplane find themselves sharing a hangar if there's any space available in someone's hangar, and paying, let's say, $250 to $350 a month just to store their airplane in the hangar while they're on a waiting list for a private individual T hangar to open up, or maybe a larger hangar at another airport. So you're going to have to do some serious research on that. These hangar prices are widely variable. There may be a ton of hangars available in your market, and so the prices are lower than what I just said. Or you're in a tight market like mine and you're on a waiting list for 2 years and hoping to scrounge and find a place to store your airplane. Next one I'll cover briefly is fuel. And where you keep your airplane, you should probably verify that they have the fuel type that your airplane takes. It sounds simple, but not all airports, one, either have any fuel, or two, they may have only 100 low lead and your airplane takes Jet A or MoGas or whatever is out there. And it becomes a very real issue that you have to deal with if your airport does not have the specific fuel type you need, or any fuel for that matter, because now you find yourself having to fly the airplane somewhere to fill it up, and making sure that when you park it in your hangar, that you have enough gas in order to make it back to that airport where you typically buy fuel. A good place to check for fuel is ForeFlight is a great option. There are other ones out there. Garmin makes a product as well, which kind of segues and leads me into the final thing I want to talk about, is subscriptions. And there's a lot more out there than you may initially be thinking or may understand if you've never owned an airplane before. Having a subscription to ForeFlight or Garmin's product, which is a great product. I just chose ForeFlight because my flight instructor in my airplane recommended it, so I went with that. But you can easily pull up fuel prices on these, as well as a ton of other information. And if your airplane has ADS-B in, you can pull up weather and en route winds, etc., right on an iPad while you're flying the airplane at no cost. If your airplane is SiriusXM capable, you can also activate a SiriusXM aviation account, but that's another subscription that you're going to possibly have to consider, and I'm not sure what it costs, but I know it's not free. ForeFlight itself is a subscription, and depending on your level, it can run upwards of almost $200 a year. Your nav databases for your airplane, also subscription-based, whether it's through Garmin or Jeppesen, depending on what avionics you use in your airplane is going to dictate where you download and get your avionics data from. Also, there are other subscriptions. If you joined AOPA or EAA, the Experimental Aircraft Association, or if the airplane you buy has its own association with it, like Cirrus has COPA, and that has an annual subscription as well. There are a number of different organizations out there who will gladly take your money and provide services for you. So through the magic of film, I managed to make dinner and set the sun behind me. And as I was reviewing this video so far, it's approaching about 10 minutes. So I think I'm going to cut this one off here and pick up on episode 4 about certified versus experimental. I've already alluded to it quite a bit in the maintenance section and also the insurance section of this video, but I want to make sure that I hit on some more high points of each and some detractors as well of going experimental or certified and the choice between the two. So with that being said, make sure you hit a like and subscribe down below, and thanks again for watching. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments, and I look forward to seeing you again. Thanks.